Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Fire, a misfire. The war has started and my artillery pieces died. I just love it. It is so good to be here. I guess I will have to sing since it's another day and another technical failure. But I am not Lawrence O'Donnell, so I will not curse, scream, fume, break paper, become beady-eyed, and show the true nature of liberalism when the cameras are off. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Today we're going to talk about a number of things, including, well, I'm going to talk about Adam's rib. I'm going to talk about, did you know about the white slave market that was run by Arab Muslims who enslaved over 1 million white Europeans who they took into slavery. That's right. When the Arab Muslim pirates roamed the Mediterranean and with impunity, they raided European cities and they raided Northern Europe. They included the coastal villages in Devon and Cornwall, England, Ireland, Scandinavia, Iceland. And one particular incident of note, in 1631, saw virtually all inhabitants of the Irish village of Baltimore captured and taken into slavery. And while the Irishmen would often become galley slaves to the Arabs, leading a pitiful and short life, women were sold predominantly for sex by the wonderful practitioners of the religion of peace. North African pirates raided the coasts of Western Europe in search of their next victims. They called white people white gold, earning them a handsome bounty. Now, what stopped these Arab throwbacks along the Barbary coast as they practiced their slavery, white slavery, between 1530 and 1780, was that in the 1800s, the nations of Great Britain and Western Europe joined together with the United States to fight the Arab Muslims and defeated them in 2 wars. They defeated them only through war. If you don't understand you're repeating history, then you are a bigger fool than Rosie O'Donnell and Lawrence O'Donnell's DNA mixed together in a test tube, boiled over Haza. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Yes, indeed, there are more slaves today than at any time in human history. We'll get into that in a minute. But I want to stick for a minute with white gold, the white slave market of the Barbary corsairs. It's odd how I get things for this program. Very odd. I, as you know, I'm a collector of, let's put it this way, I'm interested in art. So I subscribe to various art sites. This came to me from an art site, and they're selling paintings that depict this white slave trade. And I didn't know anything about it, truthfully. I didn't. I thought I was sort of educated in this area, but it shows you how blank our knowledge is in so many areas, and all you got to do is listen to Sean Penn or any other Hollywood illiterates who went to the high schools of performing art to realize how illiteracy really can be. You have no idea how heavy illiteracy is until you listen to a Hollywood star off script. Welcome to the Savage Nation. We're also going to talk about this. This is another shocker. Headline: Alarmed by Islam, Europe's gays are moving to the right. What? Gee, and they didn't hear about this in San Francisco. Did you hear this? Did you know that gay people are waking up in Europe and moving to the right, but not in America, where they're still in lockstep with the Hillary Clinton, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi stupidity? They're still left-wing Democrats. But in Europe, not all gays are following along. Oh, yes, in Europe it's a big change. We'll talk about that. And you'll find out why the gay party line needs to change in America for them to survive, as well as the so-called non-gay people. It's a very big story. Alarmed by Islam, Europe's gays are moving to the right. It's a big story. Now, today is an intriguing day for me. It's the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, and most religious Jews close their businesses. Even secular Jews close their businesses. But they don't really practice. Bagels and Lox crowd basically did their thing last night. They did the service last night. Today they're like rambling about. They don't know what to do with themselves. The store is closed. The office is closed. They don't know what to do today. They have no idea what to do in the middle of the week. A Thursday with nothing to do, with no business. So many people are listening to the show today for the first time. They don't even know what they're listening to. They're imagining they're listening to the show, but they're not. This is the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-400-7282. The website is michaelsavage.com. And I'm a newcomer to this business, I must admit. I started in 1994, and I've been on the air ever since. I'm a brand new comer to the radio business who you never heard of. And the show is the number one talk radio streaming show in America. Again, you never heard of it because I get no ink, but here we are. Okay, so let me start at the top of what I wanted to talk about today before we talk about everything else. Let me tell you about a fly in the tuna sandwich, just for a little friendly humor. I was speaking with my sister by phone this morning, so we're talking about our father. He's been dead since 1970, long time. So I said, do you remember down on Ludlow Street on the Lower East Side, which is now such a hip area? It was a slum then. He had a little antique store there in the 50s and 60s. I said, do you remember that little luncheonette, that dirty, filthy luncheonette? Now, there's a place called Katz's Deli, which people know. It's pretty famous. Been in a lot of movies, you know, the heavy corned beef kind of stuff. But up the street there on Stanton Street, I believe, I don't know where it was, along Ludlow, there was a dirty luncheonette that sold only non-meat items, right? So my father would send for sandwiches, and he would send me out. I was a little kid, and he wanted me to get tough. So he made me walk on the dirty, slummy streets alone to toughen up. I was afraid, frankly, but I did it because I was more afraid of disappointing him than getting beaten up or whatever. So here's this scrawny little kid. He sends me down the street to pick up sandwiches, and I ordered a tuna sandwich. I come back, I give him his sandwich, whatever it was, and I open mine. It was a tuna sandwich I ordered. I open it up, and there's a fly in it. And I said, Dad, he put a fly in my tuna sandwich. My father went crazy. He looked worse than Lawrence O'Donnell. And he turned red, threw the stand open, grabbed me by the little scrawny hand, took the sandwich, grabbed it, ran down the street, ran into the deli, threw it at the guy, and said, you gave my son a tuna sandwich with a fly in it? The Russian proprietor looks at him without changing his expression and says, so, I didn't charge you for the meat. What I'm trying to say to you is there was a sense of humor in those days. There's no humor. Humor is gone. Today they would shoot somebody. Do you hear what I am saying to you? Do you understand I'm working today? Do you understand I am working up here? Do you understand I'm telling you a life story and you're not responding? I've given you already the white slave market conducted by Arab Muslims of the Barbary Coast. 0, because you didn't hear about it. I said gay right-wingers are again, alarmed by Islam gays turning right, not a call. I told you about the fly in the tuna, 0. So let's go on to the next topic. Adam's rib. So last night I was in the car and I was discussing the issue that the Bible says that Eve was made from a rib taken from Adam. Now, if you want to teach your child the Bible, I suggest you tell him it's a fable. Because there's no way to say it's fake science. It's fake science. I know someone's going to call me and tell me it's fake science, but no, women were not made from Adam's rib. Now, I could talk about spare ribs if you'd like, but I'm not going to. Women were not made from Adam's rib. You understand women and men have the same number of ribs no matter what your priest tells you? All right, that's topic 5. 855-400-7282. That's the phone number. I predicted this would be a busy day on the radio. I predicted that there were hundreds of thousands of people milling about today with nothing to do. The services that they went to, and a lot of Christian people, by the way, in big cities like New York, they're closed. They're closed too, because that's the way it is, a big business thing. So if you want to talk about any of these topics in any intelligent way, I mean, I could play the sound that I have. Don't get me wrong. I could play the crazy sound of Leo DiCaprio saying we should not have people in office that don't believe in climate change. This is astonishingly funny. I could play Maxine Waters, the most hateful person in the history of politics, screaming like the mad woman she is. And I keep asking Donald Trump, everyone who listens to the show, why do they not bring up Maxine Waters' reign of terror when she ran Freddie or Fannie? She was in charge of the banks that gave away billions. She demanded that the government bail out minority banks, and only one bank was bailed out. It was a minority bank owned by Maxine Waters' own husband. Why is she not in prison? Answer, because everyone's afraid of her. So, I mean, well, you want me to get heavy political, I could do that. I don't really want to. I'm not in the mood. I talk about Nancy Pelosi's breakdown. She looks blanched. She looks like she was boiled in water with chicken stock. after the Dreamers turned on her. I can play her sound today if you'd like. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for this, okay? I want some music, and I don't want to break yet. I do not want to go to break. I'm just warming up. I'm warming myself up. I'm warming the crowd. In those days, he drank rye and 7. It was a famous drink in those days, like 7 and 7. You know, guys who didn't know alcohol or drink. That's what they did. He'd get up at the weddings and sing "You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You," which leads me to ask, who was the mystery woman? Can't ask that question on the Savage Nation. May he rest in peace. I'll be right back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Welcome to the program. We'll talk about a number of problems, not really, subjects, not problems. Let's take the calls right off the bat. Line 4, WABC, New York City. Patty, what's on your mind?
Hi, Michael, my hero. Michael, I was wondering what painting that you saw that inspired you to talk about this white slavery, the Arab slavery.
I'm going to answer it directly. So I told you I receive emails, some unsolicited. One comes from an art gallery in London. And I this is unsolicited. Listen to what it says. Fine Art Bourse, first online auction, erotic fetish and queer art objects. So I said, I don't know how they got my name, but it looks interesting, right? Erotic fetish and queer art objects. I said, what is this? View catalog. So then I go down, blah, 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 blah. And on the bottom, it says white gold, 1 million white girls kidnapped and sold into slavery, view article. The painting is astounding, of a white girl in a slave market held by the wonderful practitioners of the religion of peace, Bedouins in this case. And the painting is, which, I see 2 paintings. Why don't they give us the name of the paintings? Picking the favorite, Giulio Rosati, 1858 to 1917 would be one. Picking the favorite, Giulio Rosati. That was one of women being displayed to these vermin. There's another one that is not titled, but I put the link up on michaelsavage.com, Patty, if you want to review the paintings and stuff. You're thinking of buying one there? I mean, they're very famous, probably very expensive paintings. I'm sure that you're not into that, right?
No, I came across, I have some old art books, and I recently...
All right, I don't want to get into an art talk, thank you, because then it's an esoterica end of story. So we can go into anything you want to do here. I don't care. All right, Bobby on ABC, line 7, you're next up. Topic, please.
Dr. Savage, how you doing? You know that comment that you made about a woman, Eve's rib not coming from the man? Well, Dr.
No, sorry. Well, let's get it right. I said no, woman was not made from Adam's rib. Those are exactly what the words I said. Woman was not made from Adam's rib. God did not take a rib from Adam and make woman. Men and women have the same number of ribs, by the way. Do you know that?
Guess what, Dr. Savage? In Genesis 1, read it in Hebrew for me. In the beginning, time, God made the heavens, space, and the earth.
Please don't read the Bible to me. So what's the point? We're talking about ribs, not heavens.
Thousands of years before the scientists discovered. Space-time and matter was discovered maybe 100 years ago. So everything...
What are you talking... I don't know what you're talking about. I made a simple statement that is, if you're going to teach your child the Bible, don't rely upon the story about Adam's rib. That's the main point of my story. Now, you're what a rabbi told him to hang up? The rabbi said, quick, hang up on him. He knows what he's talking about. Quick, get off the phone. Quick, get off the phone as quick as you can. This one's a smart one. This one didn't actually drop out of high school and talk only sports. This is a smart one. This boy has a PhD. Watch out. He'll trap you pretty good. Get off the phone as quick as you can, you mumsy. You. He called crazy people. All right, let's take some callers. Justin on WABC, line 3.
Hi, first-time caller, but it's a pleasure to talk to you. Same topic as your last caller. I just had a quick question. Where, and I apologize if I have any of my facts wrong, but I guess where do you draw the line between, obviously the Bible is the basis of Jewish faith, but where is the line as far as what you take literally and what you take figuratively?
Well, it's an important question because I'm not a biblical absolutist, number one, and I'm not a biblical realist, number two. So that becomes a question of what do? You pick and choose from the smorgasbord of the Bible and do what you want? The answer is yes. And why do I say that? Because even the most religious Jew does not follow the original Bible. He doesn't stone gays, thank God, because he doesn't live in Arabia or in Iran. He does not stone adulterers because he doesn't live in Iran or the Middle East where the barbarians live who take the Bible literally. I mean, let's face it, most of the Quran was ripped off from the Jewish Bible. We all know that. Every scholar knows that. Most of it was taken from the Jewish Bible, derived from. So many of the laws that are in the original Jewish Bible are seen in the Quran, but most Jews, even the most fanatical, don't do the things that are said to do in the Bible. You know that. While the throwbacks still practice their 7th century form of religion.
Right. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure the Jewish Bible was penned approximately 500 years before the Quran came about.
That's correct. Of course it was. It's the father of all monotheistic religions. All educated people know that, including educated Muslims. That's an undeniable fact. But that's irrelevant. The relevant fact is what you're asking me, which is which part of it do you believe and which part don't you believe? And the answer is we're all people who are good people and common sense people know what to believe and what not to believe in anything they read.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
I guess I could do the regular stuff. Trump said this, China said that, North Korea did this, Mexico did that. I'm not doing it. Not interested. You can get it anywhere. You scan the media landscape. You get that in 3 seconds, all of it. So what's the point of being on radio? To do the same thing that they do? And sit here like I invented it? So I'd rather do what I'm interested in. That's all. Which is what I've been doing for 22 years. March 24th will be my 23rd year on the radio, God willing. So it's only the beginning. It's only a quarter of a century after I retired from my other career. Well, that's only a quarter of a century. It's like a new career, a quarter of a century of a new career. No, think about that one. That's amazing. And I'm still here. Well, whatever. I'm even thinking about that, though. I think I'd like to do like a Walter Winchell show once a week. That's all. Just once a week, 1 hour, captivate my whole audience. But, you know, the thing is that the world has changed, even in the media. So you do 1 hour. Oh, it's not, you can't monetize that. So don't do it for the money. Do it for less money. Well, we don't have the format for 1 hour a week. We have 3 hour blocks for talkers, even if they just drivel for 3 hours long. That's the way it is. So all I want is an hour. I want an hour on all the stations in the country. I'm thinking about it. That would be different. Like, let me see. It's like a Walter Winchell thing. He did this. You don't know who he is, but he's in the National Radio Hall of Fame, as am I, which is a great honor, incidentally. I never talk about it, but it's a great honor, especially for me because it was voted upon by listeners, not handed to me by a closed-door meeting by industry insiders who gave it to people because that's the way it's done. But the thing is, in my case, they opened it to listeners, and I won, which was a real big deal. So the point is Winchell would get on the air and say something like, Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. Now let's go to press. What a great opening. Everyone listened to this guy. They waited for this guy, like Longines Radio. The watch is not even around anymore. I own a Longines watch. Remember those days, a Bulova, Longines? Remember at LaGuardia Airport, they used to have a Bulova thing on top. Who remembers any of this stuff? Nothing. So I'm talking about a number of different things, that's all. So you ask me, like, what do you believe? A guy asked the great question, which is, what do you believe of the Bible? You can't believe all of it because then you have to start killing people, including yourself probably, for your crimes and your sins. So unless you're suicidal, you take it literally. So what, does it make you a hypocrite? See, this is the problem. The very religious people say, it's not up to you to start interpreting the Bible and do what you want. Either you follow it all or you follow none. That's it. They say you're an apostate and you're worse than the non-religious if you claim you're religious and don't follow the Bible. I've heard it. I understand that. So then it becomes like, what, do you guard unto yourself? You're going to decide what to follow? Actually, yes, most of us do, by the way. The ultra-religious follow every law to the nth degree, and in some cases it looks mishugana to those on the outside. They start getting so tripped up on the following of the law, they don't know what they're doing. They touch this, this over a piece of bread. They throw it that way. They throw it this way. They bend their head to the left, and the guy says, you should have turned it to the right. How dare you move your head down when you should have moved it up? You shuckle 3 times to the right when you're supposed to move 3 times to the left. The moon was in the aspect of the moon. And the Asperger's of the moon was to turn it into thing, and you did the wrong thing. You're going to be punished and cast into... So give me alone with this stuff already. You know, that's what most people do. They can't follow the rules. But they don't go out and kill people. There are bad people on earth, and we all knew them. And I actually have the feeling in my heart of hearts, having been around a while and raised children, been around children, I think that there are some children who are just born bad. Now, some can be turned bad, and some good ones can be turned bad. That is true, and some bad ones might, but very rarely turn good. Most bad people that I've met were bad as children. They're the ones who tore the wings off insects. They're the ones who set cattails on fire when I was a child, and there were boys who did that. They were mean, and 2 of them who did it wound up in the electric chair years later. I swear to God, it's a true story. They were the meanest people I've ever met in my life. They would catch a cat, an alley cat. They'd tie tin cans to its tail and set the cans on fire, and the cat would run screaming, and they'd laugh. And then they once set a red-haired kid on fire on a tree. I swear to God, not kidding you. These guys were bad. I won't mention their names because their relatives are probably still alive. They must be very old now. But they once took a red-haired kid, tied him to a tree. I remember it to this day. It was on Longfellow Avenue. There was a woodlot across the street where we used to play in the woods. These kids took a kid, tied him to a tree, and set a fire on his feet. And the kids started to scream, and they were laughing, and they ran away, and the adults came like with cans of water, seltzer bottles. They put the fire out, and they released the kid from the tree. Nuts, really bad people. So they were bad people, but they did bad crimes, and they both were electrocuted. Both brothers, born bad. Most of us are not born bad. Some can be made bad. And I think, look, I don't want to overgeneralize, but you know I'm telling you the truth. Most good people don't need a Bible to tell them what not to do and what to do, by the way. Some do, some don't. But having said that, I respect very religious people because without them, there'd be nothing at all. If it were not for the Meshuggahs, if you want to call them that, the ultra-religious in Jews or Christians, then none of us would even know what's right or wrong. I mean, originally, what's the red light, what's the green light, what's the yellow light? It's the same whether it's in Christianity. In other words, you can get into such a reform level of Judaism or Christianity that has no meaning whatsoever. You go to some of the temples today, you may as well be in I can't even say it because it's a family show. That's the rabbi now? A lesbian feminist is now a rabbi? I'm sorry, I can't go to that kind of service. And it's not like I don't like lesbians. I actually like lesbian people, the ones I've met. I don't like them as rabbis. Generally, they're very progressive. They're extremely left-wing, and they use the platform of the religion to sell not Judaism, but to sell communism, and I hate it. So as I say to you, if you think I'm homophobic, you're wrong. Listen to this story. Alarmed by Islam, Europe's gays are moving to the right. I can ask you a question. Are you a gay or lesbian who is a conservative who listens to this show, both for your political orientation and because you love me because I'm so smart and entertaining? One thing I found about gay people in my life is that they like a good sense of humor, I'll tell you that. And there's not much of it left in any community, gay or straight. We're living in a terrible time. So if you want to call on that, go ahead, whatever you want. But never forget the opening to this show. And I advise you to go, please, to the link I found from the Art Place on michaelsavage.com and look at the link to the white slave trade. It's astonishing. And it came to me out of the blue, over the transom, so to speak. White gold, 1 million white girls kidnapped and sold into slavery. I linked it up on michaelsavage.com. And it's not an erotic painting, okay? Don't think it's about porno. It isn't. Dog just bit my toe. Come on, Teddy, grow up already. I got a 13-year-old dog that's half blind, half deaf. I love him. He thinks he's a puppy. He sits under my broadcast desk. If I move my foot the wrong way, I lose a toe. Come on, man, lighten up. Most of us never heard of the white slave trade, where over 1 million white Europeans were taken into slavery. Yes, we were quite shocked when we discovered this as well. The Barbary coast, it was known, lay along the shores of North Africa and predominantly included the ports of Saleh, Rabat, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli. The name was derived from the Berbers who inhabited the region. and Barbary corsairs or pirates roamed the Mediterranean Sea and Atlantic Ocean with impunity to the point where at their peak in the 17th century, many Mediterranean coastal villages in Spain, France, and Italy were totally abandoned. You hear this? Sounds like what's coming today from the invasion. From the invasion. Oh, we're refugees. Please let us in so we can rape your daughter and rob your it's sickening. In those days, they raided and they took what they're getting today for free because of people like Angela Merkel and Hillary Clinton. Totally abandoned. Race, religion, or color was of no relevance. What comes as a surprise is that many raids by these pirates, Muslims, by the way, in headdresses, took place in Northern Europe, including coastal villages in Devon and Cornwall, England. Attention, Teresa, may you twit you. As well as in Ireland. Attention, Irish liberal morons. Scandinavia, attention, Scandinavian suicide cases. And as far north as Iceland. That's how far the Arabs went. One particular incident of note is in 1631, all inhabitants of the Irish village of Baltimore captured and taken into slavery. While the Irishmen would often become galley slaves, leading a pitiful and short life, women were sold predominantly for sex. So then they're selling, it says, these painted erotic Orientalist scenes are very much a depiction of real life, which if anything heightens their erotic nature. North African pirates ruthlessly raided the coasts of Western Europe in search of their next victims, white gold, as it was commonly known, earning them a handsome bounty. It was only in the mid-1800s that the nations of Great Britain and Western Europe came together with the United States, when we created the Marines, by the way, to fight and win 2 wars against the Muslim pirates. Did you know history? It's not taught at Harvard. It's not permitted to be taught at NYU. It's not permitted to be spoken about on MSNBC, ABC, CBS, LSMFT. But I'm telling you, without the truth, you're going to wind up a slave yourself because you're already halfway there. You're already enslaved in your mind. Your body is next, you idiots, you. All right, next case. Adam's Rib. Adam's Rib. I told you this was going to be a good show. I knew it would. I just felt it in my bones. Yeah, most people, I'm taking a day off. And they're not religious even. They're just going to walk around. What, are you going to go to a merry-go-round today? People ask me, you're going to take the day off? I said, why? Why should I take the day off for? What am I supposed to do today? Eat 3 chickens instead of 2? No, I'm not taking the day off. I said, there are millions of people who don't have the day off. They're going to listen to the radio. They want to get an entertainment and a little education. They're going to listen to me. So I'm giving you. That's all. You already got a lot for your money for free. For nothing. You didn't pay anything for this course. And look what you got. All right, Mike on KSFO, you're on the Adam's Rib thing. Go ahead. What's your point?
All right, I'm just saying that the Adam and Eve, the rib word in the Bible is the same root word as the word rung. And if you remove one rung from male DNA, what do you have?
Now you're playing rabbi with me? The Bible says that woman was made from Adam's rib, that God ripped out a rib from Adam and made a woman. And I'm saying that's not true.
No, I'm saying...
So what are you not saying it's true, are you?
Rib out of male DNA, you get female DNA.
Sir, I don't know what you're saying. You're saying that God took the DNA from man to make woman?
No, God took the Y chromosome out of the male DNA, and it became female DNA.
You mean he couldn't have created both a male and female of the species at the same time because he was too stupid?
No, I
mean, if you studied embryology, you'll find out how idiotic this is. Unfortunately for you, I studied embryology, both undergraduate and graduate. Study embryology, you'll see the division of a cell and how it divides into various sexual forms. So I don't know where God comes in on this. God, if you want to believe God created everything in the beginning, I go along with that, fine, because we have no other answer. I don't believe we just came out of dust in the universe and the muck and the this and the that and the air and the carbon dioxide. I don't believe that's true. I think God created it all, but I think God created male and female of all species at the same time. Thank you. Back. Be here.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. know that Equifax recently announced a breach that could affect 143 million Americans? That's just so far. And the organization determined that the credit card numbers for about 200,000 consumers and personal data, including Social Security numbers for about 180,000 consumers, were accessed. There's a lot of people. Did you know you're 11 times more likely to become a victim of identity fraud if you are notified of a breach? Well, it's a good thing there's LifeLock, because LifeLock detects a wide range of identity threats you may miss simply by monitoring your credit, like someone stealing from your 401k. Hello? But if there's a problem, a U.S.-based identity restoration specialist will work to fix it. So listen to me carefully. We all know no one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock can help you see more threats to your identity. So go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock, code SAVAGE. That's LifeLock.com, code SAVAGE, for 10% off your membership. It's important that you visit LifeLock.com and save 10% right now. WABC, Carol, line 3, you're on the Savage Nation. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Savage. The white slave trade, first of all, very pleased to talk with you. I was in Marseille, France as a student on a summer vacation. I was approached by two men in the back of a truck. They were Arabic men. Marseille is a port. They kept telling me in French, because I speak French, that I could become a model. Like they pointed to a girl with a lollipop on a poster. They urged me to get into the truck, I had a gut feeling, and I ran. Luckily, on that trip, my parents were there. I ran back to the hotel, and I told them, and my father, a nice Jewish man, a doctor from the neighborhood in Queens, you should know, said to me, white slave trade, you just saved your own life. And do not go near...
Carol, how long ago was this, in the 60s?
Yes. And then later, a few years later, in 1969, I was told somebody from my college, University of Pennsylvania, was taken by somebody like that, never to be seen again.
And you haven't heard about this on ABC, have you?
No, I just heard about it on your show.
Haven't you been told that all the women who come over with burqas and slits for the eyes, that hate you with the eyes, and all the men who spit at you in the street, aren't they wonderful practitioners of love and peace and a practitioner of religion and peace? Isn't that what the party line is?
Yes, it is, absolutely.
Why in the world is the West committing suicide? Why? Tell me what it is, Carol. Why do so many politicians want to kill all of us with the big lie?
Can I tell you why I think it is? I think that our version of democracy got wrapped up with the idea of Protestant and Christian guilt. We are guilty, we are bad. That's the basis of it. And whatever we do, in the 90s, there was excess of money, and we all got glamorous. It's all our fault. Some are going to think it's all our fault.
Well, I don't think so. Since I've worked since I'm 5 years old, it's not what I think. I don't apologize for anything I've ever done in my life. And I'm not up here to tell people to feel guilty because they're born of a certain race, whatever it may be. And I think it's very important that we respect that slavery is the worst thing you could do to someone. It's equivalent to rape. And, of course, millions of Americans of African ancestry were brutalized in their ancestry. But it's very important that we set the record straight and we talk about the 1 million white people who were enslaved by none other than the same people who enslaved the black people, who are the Arabs, and why we welcome more of them in, especially the uneducated ones who live in the 9th century, makes no sense to me.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Mike.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. So, back in the 1800s, we were fighting the slave traders in Tripoli. And we were talking today about the white slave trade conducted by Arabs in the 1700s. And here's a little side note to the white slave trade, where over 1 million people were ripped out of their villages in the Mediterranean, as far north, by the way, as Ireland, Iceland even, and sold into slavery by the Arabs. In 1785, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams went to London to negotiate with Tripoli's envoy, Ambassador Sidi Haji Abdarrahman, and they said to him, "What right do you have to take slaves in this way?" This is Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. And the ambassador, the Muslim ambassador, said, "The right to take slaves was, quote, founded on the laws of the Prophet, that it was written in their Quran, that all nations who should not have answered their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise," unquote. Has anything changed? No, nothing has changed in Iraq and Syria amongst ISIS. They think exactly the same way. So when Donald Trump came along and said he will not let any more Muslims into this country until, quote, we can figure this thing out, he was 1,000% right, meaning figure out how to weed out the throwbacks. Well, what happened? What happened was the idiotic, stupid judges in black robes said, "You know what? You don't know what you're talking about. You're a racist. We're going to let them all in." And they blocked them. So this is the struggle that America is going through right now. It's a struggle for the entire West, whether it wants to live or die. As I can see it on this day, I see the West struggling between those who want to live and those who want to die. And unfortunately, right now, those who want to die are running the media. They're running Hollywood. They're running the universities. And they're running a good portion of the government. I am not in that group. I want to live. I choose life. We're also talking about the Bible. As you well know, it's on my mind, and I'm not going to preach to you today. I'm going to wait another month before I get preachier than I've already been over the last few weeks, because the book God, Faith, and Reason will not be out until November 14th. It's a little late, admittedly, but it's just before the holidays. It's my opus. It's my magnum opus, and it's my search to find meaning, if you want to put it that way, since I've been a little child. If you want to say my search to find God, to me, God and meaning are tied up into the same word. If you want to look into the root of the word meaning, and the root of the word God, a religion, to me, is finding meaning in life. You know, the French have a saying for it, raison d'être, a reason to live. Some find a reason to live in one way or another in various things. Others have to search for a deeper reason to live other than golf or sports or television or entertainment. And I've been one of those kids all my life. And luckily, I have a funny bone and I have an ability to make people laugh. I have since I've been a kid. I don't do it often enough, I will admit, but you can't force it. You can't just come up with the desire to, be funny. That's not the way the world is. Either it strikes me that day or it doesn't. So today, there's a little bit of the gene for humor in the show, and not much of it, a little bit. But we're talking about the white slave trade. We're talking about the literal interpretation of the Bible with Adam's rib. We are talking about a very big story you will not hear on any of the television shows for reasons that, of course, goes to my... Alarmed by Islam, Europe's gays are moving to the right. You will not hear it in the media because the media is run by the suicidal, as you can see by some of the outtakes of a show host on MSNBC who was seen between takes going insane over sound in his earplug. Unbelievable to me. Astounding. You see how phony they are. All of it that you see is pre-recorded on cable news. Every last image is fake. Every last image is fake news because it's staged news. And you see the real man cracking up, going crazy at his staff, yelling, rolling up paper. You look like Captain Queeg. Calls himself a socialist, no less. Don't you love it? The higher the... Well, I can't say it's a family show, but there's a phrase for it in the ancient Yiddish, or the old Yiddish, which is the bigger the klafka, the bigger the... I can't even... But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, in other words, the bigger the image that they wear to show how holy they are of their socialism, the bigger the phony. It's that simple. You'll take Leon DiCaprio, for example, a fine actor. I love his acting. Here's a guy who has the nerve to say we should not have people in office that don't believe in climate change. Do you understand how audacious this is and what crap it is? The man has an entourage, a harem of girls. He has a private jet, a yacht. Maybe he charters them. Always entertaining himself with the women like he's a pasha. Flies around, cruises around, and talks about global warming, and I'm supposed to believe it. Here is an example of the hypocrisy and the suicidal nature of the hypocrisy of an actor named Leon DiCaprio in clip 29.
We should not have people in office that do not believe in facts and truths and modern science that are able to manipulate and risk the entire future of this entire generation. We are at that turning point right now, and we're going to look back at this moment in history, and frankly,
Lenny.
this administration.
Yes, Lenny.
And certain people are going to be vilified for not taking action. They really are.
Lenny, if you actually caught up with the science, Lenny boy, I know you went to the High School of Performing Art in Beverly Hills, and you sort of skipped the academic subjects. You skipped math, you skipped literature, you skipped everything, Lenny. I know you went right into thespianism, but you know there is actually science on this global warming issue, Lenny, and it doesn't support the big lie. We're actually in a global cooling phase, Lenny. You really have to catch up with the modern science that you speak so eloquently of. This is the Savage Nation. Let's go to the callers. WJRW in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I love that city. Anna, welcome to the program. What is on your mind today, Anna?
Well, first of all, thanks for taking my call. And I do remember Longines, and I can't believe I've been listening for so long. But the problem of the rib, I think, is, for one thing, we need to let Scripture interpret Scripture. And we need to look at the words, what they actually mean, because they may have been translated improperly.
I understand. For example, when we say thou shalt not kill, we're not correctly stating the Bible. It says thou shalt not murder. The Hebrew word is for murder, not kill. There's a big difference. So are you saying when we read in the Bible that God took a rib from Adam and made Eve, we're not reading the correct word in the word rib?
Right.
Well, what is the word? Well, what is the Hebrew word that is referred to then, if not rib?
Part. And
I just said, wait,
you know that men...
Wait, ma'am, stop. You just said that we have to go back to the Hebrew Bible, and when it says God took a rib from Adam and he made Eve, you are alleging that the word rib is misinterpreted, mistranslated. What, in fact, are you alleging the Hebrew word for that is stated in the Hebrew Bible? What is it? What does the word actually say?
Part. A part.
He took a part from man and made woman. What part?
Well, I don't remember if it's the left side or right side, but men think on one side and women think on the other. And I think...
Wait, what part did God take from a man to make a woman?
I don't remember which one it would be.
All right, I don't want to mock you. I'm not sitting here to mock anybody. I'm going to send you a copy of God, Faith, and Reason because I'm a very reasonable man with a real doctorate from a great university. I have published papers in the sciences, and yet I'm a great believer in the fact that God created it all. It's that simple. So I'm going to send you the book. You'll see where I come from. Stay on the line. It'll be out in a few months. You can buy it on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com right now. It's going to be a great book. But the point I'm making is, what part was God referring to? I would think that the only Jewish people who know Hebrew and know the Bible are not listening to the show today. They're in temple. They're not listening. So my religious audience is gone. I have a very large religious audience, by the way. And I try not to offend them. I don't know what they make of me altogether. Maybe they think I'm just a jester in the synagogue, but that's fine. We all need jesters in churches and synagogues. But is there anyone out there who knows the Hebrew, who is violating their own religion by listening to me today instead of going to temple? You're supposed to be in temple today, not listening to the Savage Nation. But if you are a very wise man or woman who knows Hebrew, who can tell me what the Bible means when it says God took Adam's rib and he made a woman. We know it's not a rib because both men and women have the same number of ribs. Count them. The next time you're with a woman or you're with a man and you have nothing to do, instead of having a cigarette, count the ribs. 1, 2, and you'll see that we have the same number of ribs. There are variants, but by and large, man and woman have the same number of ribs, boys and girls. So we can't believe that it's literally true that God took a rib out of man and made a woman. So what did God take? Is there anyone out there who knows the answer to this riddle? This is the Savage Nation. It's so much fun being with you today. It's 16 minutes here. I am so glad that I didn't take the day off to do nothing. Why would anyone want to just do nothing today? It's a horrible day to do nothing. This is wonderful. Rib story, ribs. I I have a friend who I affectionately call Ribs because he loves spare ribs. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. I think this is an important question, Adam's rib. It's a funny statement. And Biblical Translated chose to translate the Hebrew word Selah as rib when referring to the formation of Eve from Adam in Genesis 2:22. And there are biblical scholars who say never is this word translated as the word rib in any other scriptures except in that particular place. Some scholars believe, as I do, that Adam was created both male and female, as denoted in Genesis 1:27, and that God literally removed the female part of Adam from his abdominal chamber, Selah, right? So why didn't translators translate this word as chamber? This is the conundrum. I don't know how it goes. So what does the word really mean? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? I don't know. I mean, things have advanced since the time of Genesis, right? And Arabic, by the way, shows that dilah, rib, is not the same root as zalah, to limp. And it just so happens that in Hebrew, well, I could go on and on. I'm not a biblical scholar at all, or I'm just a person trying to get through it all without hurting anybody, by the way. So we're talking about biblical absolutism, biblical realism, and the world we're living in. How do you know what to do, what's right and what's wrong? This is the only question really that we all face. What is right and what is wrong? And that becomes something for you to figure out on your own. I'm not here to tell you what it is, but I think we all know what's right and wrong. But some have lost their way. They don't know what's right or wrong. And I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong for you. It's my own struggle. I'm just here to do the news, views, and reviews. And, entertain you a little bit. But these questions become quite problematic because there are people who interpret their holy book literally and kill you if you don't fit up to their standards. Mainly they're of a particular 7th century religious view. And, I have to say this right now. I am very concerned for the future of the West. I think the West is being destroyed completely, both by liberalism and by radical Islam, which have made a marriage. The marriage had took place over the last number of years. I wrote about it in Government Zero, one of my previous books, where I saw the radical left joining forces with radical Islam to destroy the West, both for different reasons. And eventually they would fight it out for dominance, and I know who would win at that point. The Arabs are much smarter than the leftists are. And at the end of the day, the Arabs would kill all of them and then take over the leftist movement and destroy them and then take over the world. But the progressives are so hateful and, by the way, so deluded in their thinking, they don't even know what they're doing most of the time. They put it under the guise of being good for the environment, minorities, women. That's not at all what they're for. They're for the total conquest of the political structure and replacing it with their vision, which may be that of Marx, Engels, Trotsky, you name it. They don't know what they're doing, and they don't know where it leads. They don't know history, and they're condemned to repeat it, but I'm not going along with them, which is why I detest them. I'm not going to let insane people lead me to my own death, which is what my fight is every day on this radio show, incidentally. And I want to leave it at that for the moment. I don't have to sit here and get angry. It's just what I do for 20-some-odd years. And some people actually believe in what I say. And they buy the books I write, 5 in a row bestsellers. No one can match that. Nobody can match that 5 in a row, the last one, a #1 bestseller on the New York Times list, without a single appearance on any television show. It's pretty remarkable. No book tour. No book tour. That's a big way of stocking your book, by the way, stocking the numbers. I mean, if I did a book tour like Hillary Clinton is doing, which I do not do, you can sell 2,000 books at any bookstore that sets it up right. So you do 5 bookstores, that's 10,000 books right away. I don't do it. She has to do it because she's not loved very much. She's despised by most people. And a lot of them buy their own books. I don't do that. A lot of them have organizations buy their books. I don't do that. And so, the numbers can be altered quite readily. So, in November, my book, God, Faith, and Reason, will be out. We'll see what happens. It could be a big success or a big flop. We don't really know. And I don't know. It's in God's hands. If you want to know whose hands it's in, it's fate, God, whatever you want to say. But today we're doing, news, views, and reviews. We happen to be talking about a number of topics, including this topic. This is the white slave market, which was conducted by Arab Muslims along the Barbary Coast. It was only stopped when they were killed. When enough of them were killed, then their enslavement of whites stopped. Does it sound familiar? Now you understand what barrel bombs were invented for. Now you understand what Tomahawk missiles were designed for. Now you understand what guided missile cruisers were designed for. Now you understand what B-2 bombers were designed for. I hope you do, because if you don't, then you are first enslaved in your mind, and you'll be enslaved in your body as well. Unfortunately, there are some on Earth who must be stopped only with force. That's the only thing they understand. One of them is a monster in North Korea by the name of Kim Jong-un, loved by Madeleine Albright, John Kerry, the UN, and the other psychopaths who almost destroyed this nation, and the West, by the way. Apparently, there is a man who understands the existential threat that this fat monster poses. His name is Donald Trump. And I hope it doesn't come down to it, but I know it will. I know it will. I think Fatso will launch and will destroy him.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
And the tuna to Adam's rib to white slavery. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. We're talking about a lot of interesting topics. They're not directly related to the politics of the time in many ways. But I was thinking about something during my lunch break just now. I just had a big lunch in 5 minutes during the break. I love being in radio because you don't lead a normal life. I ran into the radio kitchen. I heated up a half a piece of pita bread. I put on it avocado and tomato, and I'm gagging on it right now. That's my power lunch. I'm not in the Four Seasons. I didn't have a martini. I didn't have a wine. But I'm enjoying myself because I'm using my mind, which is really the greatest thing a human being can do. It's the greatest gift we have is our mind. And a mind is a terrible thing to waste, by the way, on trivia. So I'd rather talk about these topics today. And I invited a biblical scholar to call the show if they know what the word rib really means in the Bible, because it makes no sense. But before I take that call, on that subject of Adam's rib, not to interpret literally, people ask me, what do you do? How do you know what to follow? If you don't follow the Bible to the letter of the law, where does that leave you? You're going to start interpreting the Bible any way you want? And what does that make you? You can do anything you want. Well, unfortunately, that is what has happened. And that's why you have such bizarre things as liberal Jewish temples that do the opposite of the Bible and call themselves religious. They put on the cloak. And they don't follow anything that's in the Bible. So people say, well, what does it mean? Like they have a Jewish star over their head and a pulpit that makes them religious? No. And the same thing is true in every religion. It's the same in Islam. That's why the fundamentalist Muslims follow the letter of the law and they kill people. That's all. So where does it leave people who are modern, educated, tolerant, humane? And that's something for each person to figure out on their own. But it brings me back to Trump in a strange way. I had a little insight running in and out of the kitchen just now. I said, you're talking about biblical absolutists, and you're saying it shouldn't be interpreted that way. You're saying it should be interpreted with common sense. There are Trump absolutists out there who have gone crazy, like Ann Coulter. She's a smart woman. I admire her writings. She's a Trump absolutist. She's gone off her mind over this, because he's not an absolutist in what he promised. But I never thought he would give us 100% of what he promised. Never. I wasn't born yesterday. I said by the end of the campaign when he won, I said if we get 10, 20% of what he promised, it'll be 110 or 120% more than we would have gotten if Hillary had won. That's the best we're going to get in this world that we live in. And, this is what you have to remember. 50% of this nation is one way and 50% is the other. Just take raw numbers. The nation is roughly divided 50-50. For a president to govern, no matter who he may be, there must be compromise. There must be. So you cannot be a Trump absolutist because you're going to be miserable. You're going to alienate yourself from yourself. Does this mean we have to go along with everything he does? No. You can still disagree. We live in a free country. But don't expect 100% of what he promised because you're never going to get it. You never were going to get it. So you say, well, why didn't Obama compromise? Because he was a fanatic. And he had the entire media on his side. Do you understand that? Trump is different than Obama. Trump has 100% of the media against him, number one, and 50% of the population against him. So he's trying to make some policies that work. That's the world we live in. Now getting back to Adam's rib. Sean on WMAC in Georgia, line 1. Go ahead, please. What's on your mind?
Dr. Savage, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. The word that we're talking about,
thank you,
Genesis, in Hebrew, it's actually Sela, and it's S-E-L-A in English would be a transliteration, and it's used as a rib, but in the sense of something being curved. Sort of, I hate to use this analogy, but much like a prophylactic would have, they say, ribbed. You know, if you took the rib away, you would still have the prophylactic, but the rib would be gone. The curve, and it works the same with the Bible. Adam was created with a feminine side, and the Lord took that from him and made a woman out of it. And that
interesting.
The woman would always be a part of each other. He didn't want them to be made separate from each other. He wanted them to be one working unit. So he made the man and took the woman from the man.
So to teach a child, you teach the child that God made man and woman, and they're only whole when they're together.
Exactly. They're not meant to be apart. And
it's a beautiful way to look at it.
Well, we have the English translation, but God chose Greek and Hebrew because they're very exact and very concrete languages. They have a root word, and then words are born out of that word. An actual rib, a bone in a body, would actually not have the S. It would just be Elah or Elah. And I
assume that you are a Christian biblical scholar. Is that correct, Sean?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay, and you're a very, very erudite man as well. I'm going to ask you a very pointed question, and it's very self-serving. You know I'm a secular man. You know I'm not a religious man per se, but you know that I'm obsessed with the whole question of the meaning of life, as you well know listening to this program.
Oh, yes.
Would a man as oriented as you are towards both Christianity and scholarship be at all interested in this one man's odyssey along that road in God, faith, and reason?
Well, certainly. In my used-to-be profession, I left the church because the church doesn't teach anymore. So I got away from that and got a real job. But, I mean, that is my job, is to help people understand what the meaning of life is.
Okay, so but I'm saying, but what is my struggle about the meaning of life, and does God exist, and where does God show himself? Why would that be of interest to you?
Well, because I want you to be there when this is all done. And
I hear what you're saying. Okay, I get it. The rapture, I get it.
Well, no.
Okay.
Rapture, no.
Well, okay. I'm going to send you a copy of God, Faith, and Reason when it's out. You know, it's interesting. I wrote every word. Again, I will repeat that. But there's a wonderful man who studied Greek for 7 years in order to read the Dead Sea Scrolls. Would you believe this? He took my Bible, my Old Testament, which I've talked about 1,000 times on this show, which has a lot of Post-its in it with references to just passages from Isaiah, Ezekiel, things that I found meaningful. And the publisher asked him to take those excerpts from the Bible and sprinkle them throughout my book. And he said, you know, Michael, I read this book of yours, and he said, I get the feeling it was a piece of the Old Testament that was left out. What you wrote is almost like your prophetic. It's like a piece of the Bible that was not in there. You're like a descendant of those people, the way you wrote it. I said, well, coming from you, you studied the Greek. This, by the way, this man is a salesman. He's not a scholar, but he got so enraptured years ago, before he met me, with these questions that he went and studied Greek himself in order to get into the root of it all. It's just amazing what people do. So don't assume that the talk radio audience is meager in thought and uneducated as the media would have you believe. The same media that slams us as deplorables are actually the deplorables themselves. The same Hollywood that lectures us every day about what we don't know are actually the most ignorant people on the planet if you analyze what they really say and look at what they've actually studied. Most of them have no education at all. They went directly from junior high school to acting. They skipped mathematics. They skipped science, the sciences. And they lecture you on the sciences and mathematics. They know nothing of Scripture. They know nothing of God. They laugh and mock everyone who is religious. And they lecture you on morality. Can you believe this? That's the world we live in. And that's what makes me happy to have the opportunity to speak with you every day, because I bring an educated background, a comedic background, and a questioning background to the show every day. Sometimes they're better than others, you know. So let's go to the callers now. Michelle on WABC line 4. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Michael. Great show today. Very exciting, but yet very, very chill. Glad you came in today.
Wait, what did you say about chill? What did you say? Very chill?
Yeah, it's a very exciting show, but it's still very relaxed. Even though
okay. Yes, you can feel that. I'm not on the wire's edge there, you know.
Sorry, I guess I have too many young people in my life. You had mentioned biblical realism and how it could be problematic, you know, and I can see how it can be. I was lucky enough to take a theology class in college and studied all religions, and it's they can't all be right, they can't all be wrong. I'm Catholic. But I'm just curious how you feel about if we get a sign. You know, I believe our loved ones are with us. To get to the chase, I was walking my min pins, and I saw the most beautiful feather in the woods. I noticed it. It shone. It had a glow to it. And I took the walk, and I got it. And I picked up the feather, and I looked up to the sky, and I said, thanks. You know, it's great to know you're with me, but I'm good. You know, I'm good.
Well, now, wait. Who do you think left? Who was in the feather, or who was the feather representing?
Someone. But at the
You mean somebody in your past who died?
My father, my aunt, someone. But
all right, so that's your way of reaching God is through nature.
Okay, and that's what I mean. You know, Native Indians, I believe that. But the thing was, then I looked at the feather and I said, wait a minute. I'm getting goosebumps as I tell you, but I said, wait a minute. You're telling me you're with me because I'm going to need to know you're here. And later on that night, I happened to have my ears open. My senses were awakened. And I heard boom. And I yelled to one of my children, did you just drop something? No. And it was my daughter in the bathroom downstairs overdosed.
Oh, come on.
No, Michael, I mean it.
Michelle, what are you like, the Long Island medium calling me? Who are you?
No, I didn't call anything. I don't know. I don't go for any of that. I called you because you've seen so many other cultures, and I'm just curious how you feel about...
Yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. I know what you say. Yes, of course we do. We all have a sixth sense. What you're asking is, do we get signs? The answer is 1,000% yes.
Again, coming from
yes.
You, I was just curious.
Yes, we're tuning forks. Every one of us who is super conscious is sort of a tuning fork. And we can pick things up. Leave it at that. I don't have to add to that. So you picked something up and bingo. I hope your daughter survived, did she?
Yes, she did. Because I heard it. And again, normally I'm in a big house. I'm in a huge house.
Well, I'm going to give you an example, not directly from my life, but from a distant relative. He was in World War II. Let's call him Manny.
Okay.
Manny was in a foxhole in the Battle of the Bulge. The shells were flying, the 88s, trees were blowing up, men were being destroyed in front of his eyes. Manny heard his mother say, Manny, get out of that foxhole. Everyone said, you're crazy. The bombs were going off. He got out and ran to another one. Everyone in the hole was killed 2 seconds later.
So if we're open, that they really...
I don't know. I mean, what do you... Manny was crazy. He survived World War II. Does it mean the other guys deserve to die? I'm not saying that. He got a message from his mother. How did that happen?
So it is. So I got it, and it saved a life that night. Again, I was just curious. I listen to you, and I look up to you, and I was just curious how you felt about that.
I feel about it the way you feel about it, which is that there's a higher power and we're tuned into it if we're tuned into it. And if we're not tuned into it, we're not tuned into it. Those who know will always know, and those who won't, those who don't will never. I wrote that when I was 17 years old. Those who know will always know, those who don't will never. I remember writing that in my journal at 17. What was that about? I was trying my best to understand what I was getting, the messaging in my head. And if I told anyone about it, they would have said I was crazy, so I told no one about it. I had a journal. That's who I told about it. So keep up. All I can say is keep the faith and don't close your mind down. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. I learned something shocking from an FBI report recently. Do you know what the average property loss from just one home break-in is? $2,316. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's one burglary over $2,000. If you tally up all the burglaries in this nation, it's really crazy. The total loss is in the billions. And with so much to lose, I'm telling you, it's as important as ever to protect your home with Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe, that's S-I-M-P-L-I, safe, protects every door and window in your home. The system is wireless, so you can set it up yourself without drilling holes in your wall. That's the amazing part. And bingo, you have professional alarm monitoring around the clock ready to send police. The beauty is if you move, you can take Simply Safe with you, right? That's an amazing thing. It's just $15 a month with Simply Safe. You can be sure that your home and your things are protected. So go to simplysafesavage.com and get a special 10% discount when you order today. SimplySafeSavage.com. Or if you want the security system right now, go to your local Best Buy. You'll have your home protected by tonight. That's SimplySafeSavage.com for 10% off. SimplySafeSavage.com. Actually, not Woodstock. I didn't go to Woodstock. My idea of fun was not laying in the mud and getting high. But I can remember other things about 67, and one of them was this song. I don't know, with the show today about Adam's rib and the white slavery, I think I'm going to have short ribs tonight. Sometimes I get inspired by the show as to what I'm going to eat for dinner. And tonight's short ribs, I don't even know what a short rib is. Jim, are you there? Could you come on the show? Jim Verley is my call screener, but he's a caterer on the side. I think he's a caterer and he's a call screener on the side. Jim, yes, what is a short rib? Is it made from midget cows? What is a short rib?
It is not made from midget cows. It is basically a cross-cut rib. It's going to be about 3 to 6 inches long, and it's going to contain about 3 to 6 beef ribs in the cut. And you can cook it a number of different ways. Why is it a short rib?
You mean because it's cut short? Is that why it's called short rib?
Yes, exactly. It's not the full rib. It's cut across the rib.
So what is a full rib? That would be like spare ribs in a Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, you can do spare ribs, or you can do a St. Louis cut of a rib, and then there's the baby back also.
The best ribs I ever had in my life were on Beale Street, and when I went down there by accident when the plane went down.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, it didn't crash, but it was going down slow over Tennessee, and we wound up and walked around. It was beautiful, but they were good. Then there's a Korean joint here in San Francisco that has the greatest ribs. Are those short ribs that I'm eating in the Korean restaurant?
Yes, Korean ribs are generally short ribs.
Well, I would eat them, but I'm boycotting anything with the name Kim in it, including Chi. I'm joking. We shouldn't take it out on the good Korean people. They know what he is. This is the Savage Nation. If you just joined us, I'll be here for another hour, God willing. God wanted me here. I'm here. You'll be here. I'll be back. Be here or be nowhere. Go to michaelsavage.com for all the stories you may have missed.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award.
Remember your mother said to you, you wait and see when you get older how fast time will go. And you say, you're crazy. And to yourself. I had a friend explained to me, I wish he was listening to the show so we could call. I'm going to get it wrong. Why, as we get older, why time seems to move faster. I don't remember it. It was pretty smart. But if you start to translate what someone told you, you don't really remember it. You butcher it. So I'm going to go on. That's all. Hello, deplorables. How are you? How are you today, all you deplorables out there? Those hated by Woody Allen and his friends in Manhattan. Those hated by Lawrence O'Donnell and the others on MSNBC who are just so much superior to you, at least when they're on camera. When they're off camera, they're like babbling idiots. There's a guy on MSNBC, I never knew much about him. I'm not going to knock him. I mean, he looks like a reasonably intelligent man, Lawrence O'Donnell. I knew when he said he declared himself a socialist, he was full of it. That I knew. How can you make over $1 million a year and be a socialist, other than if you're a liar? What, are you kidding me? So anyway, he's caught with a group of unhinged outtakes that you have to see to actually believe. As this anchor fumes about earpiece malfunctions, and he starts screaming obscenities. It's better to watch it than it is to listen, but we're going to play a little of it now to show you that there's now definitive proof that liberalism is a mental disorder. Let's listen to clip 2.
What's going on? Why am I losing this? Why don't I have sound? All right, it's back. Someone's pressing buttons and turning my sound off. Someone in that control room is out of control. You have insanity in my earpiece. Don't leave it there. It's not my earpiece. It's somebody talking on our lines. Every time we go to a SOT, there's a woman talking in my ear about something that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it? Where's the hammer? Is it on the... Go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering. Stop the hammering. I'll go down to the goddamn floor myself and stop it. Keep the goddamn commercial break going. Call fucking Phil Griffin. I don't care who the you have to call. Stop the hammering. The woman talking in my ear was talking about the Labor Day special repeatedly. Every time we went to a SOT. Out of control. I don't know why I bother to say how to cut the SOTs when you don't do it. It just fucking sucks. It fucking sucks to be out here.
All right, you get the picture. Thanks to Mediaite. Someone leaked this from inside the studio. They must love him so much that they collected the outtakes and sent it out to the media. You're loved, Lawrence. I can tell your staff just loves you. They sabotage you pretty good right now. And it's funny in its own way because we all go through these technical difficulties and we can explode. But when he starts at stop the hammering! Stop the hammering! It's like no wire hangers! It's like Captain Queeg, man. I mean, this is like a Captain Queeg moment. Fabulous. So shows like he's on. Then he goes back on the air and he's Mr. Straight and Mr. This. And the minute he's off the air, mean. And the piece is about, well, Donald Trump did not reach out to anyone during Hurricane Irma and touch any of the poor black people in Houston during Hurricane Irma. What a mean man that Donald Trump is. Stop the hammering! I'll kill all of you out there! Who do you think you are? Welcome back to the MSNBC show. Unbelievable. It is fake news because it's all stage news. You understand that? All right, now this is a format called talk radio where there's nothing staged. It's natural, it's live. I'd love to see any of these guys on television try this for 1 hour straight, A, without a script, and B, without being able to cut things out that they say. You know how long they'd last? 0. They couldn't do it. This is the toughest of all the mediums. This is the toughest, the hardest. And we're not considered, by the way, the epitome of entertainment. We're considered let's say if we were a cut of meat, the part of the cow that you wouldn't eat. That's what we're considered in the entertainment world. Because they say, talk radio, yeah, they're part of the entertainment world, but they're the lowest end of it. But it's the toughest end of the meat. Let me tell you that. So let's go back to the topics, new topics, the news. The news is so horrible, I'm not going to the news. The only good news is that Donald Trump got China to go along in cutting all the banking off with North Korea. That's a huge victory. Even the vermin on MSNBC have to admit that this is a big victory. Even the psychotics on CNN had to acknowledge that what Trump just pulled off is an amazing piece of diplomacy. Even they had to admit it. That's a good thing. Now North Korea is going to be isolated even further by their number one controlling nation, which is China. Now, you may say this is a good thing, and it is, but I know what this maniac in North Korea is liable to do. You back him up against the wall, he's going to get crazier. He will not be sane because he's insane. You watch this guy and you listen to what he says. This man is truly an insane man. And there are only a few ways to deal with insane people, one of which is not to negotiate with them because you cannot win. You can never win negotiating with an insane man. Never. And unfortunately, it will come to some kind of terrible end for this man. The world has finally decided that he has to go. He is a far graver threat to our survival as a nation than was Saddam Hussein. And look what happened to him. Remember that. Saddam Hussein never really posed a threat to our survival, while Kim Jong-un, mentally ill one, has threatened to destroy this nation, has threatened to blow Japan off the map. He's a threat to the world order. We can't have it. China can't have it. It's bad for business. And this is a man who's killed his own relatives who we thought were conspiring with China. Not good for him. Not good for him at all. Now, the topics that are out there are, many. You got the Hillary, the Pelosi, you got the Rosh Hashanah, you got all of that stuff out there. I can do any of it. I can do all of it. I can do none of it. Let's take the calls on the Savage Nation. WFTL in Florida. Raquel, line 7, what's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. It's a great show. I'm interested in every topic that you're talking about. But I wanted to say when you had mentioned prior about some children that were either tormenting or torturing animals and then progressively into burning a child until somebody saved him, it is in our DNA. And I had listened to you the other day. Our DNA carries memories from the beginning. And I was adopted, and I have 3 other siblings, and all 4 of us, 3 of us, are very successful. Myself, one of my brothers that is a physician who has 8 boards. My other brother is a CPA, and the other one is a criminal, and his biological was a criminal. We were all hereditary.
What do you mean? You mean he was from another mother or father?
All of us were. All of us were adopted, but biologically we followed footsteps, not even knowing who our biological...
So you're saying one of your siblings was born, he had the bad seed, in other words.
Correct. Heredity is the seed, and environment is the soil. So the one brother, even though he was raised with us from the time he was 6 months old. Now
he was no good. He was no good. He was no good. What was he like as a child? What did he do to animals and other kids?
Well, there would be no doing to animals, or my father would have had him in a pine box. But he would pull... It just wasn't... You could tell that if he would have had leeway, he would have done those things. He would have started doing that, like chasing a cat, let's say. And my father would put the kibosh on that. But I'm telling you, there are instinctual things, whether you believe the biblical text or not. There was even the reptilian part of the brain. We know that there's instincts, and it's passed on. I'm a part of...
My allegation is that there are kids who were just born bad. I've met them, I've seen them, I know what they're like, and they become lawyers usually.
Believe it or not, the one that was bad did go to law school. He had 4...
I was saying that in jest because I know some very nice people who are lawyers. Not many. A smaller percentage of nice people become lawyers than the amount of grain of sand there is on a beach. But that's a reversal of the opposite. But it has a meaning in its own way. You know what I'm talking about. He became a lawyer. Was he a class action lawyer? Is that what he became?
No, he wasn't a class action lawyer. However...
Mesothelioma, is that what he specialized in?
Listen, he went to jail back in the 90s. But he could not get... No matter how good this lawyer
So what did he do then when he came out of jail? Go into politics and become a Democrat socialist and say he wants to give something to everyone? I mean, they used to say that the joke was that corrupt politicians would promise a chicken in every pot during every election. They go around saying there's a chicken in every pot. And I jokingly said, not so jokingly, in America today, the communists go around like Bernie Sanders and promise pot in every chicken. That's what we have now. We don't have a chicken in every pot. We have pot in every chicken.
The one brother, my other brother that's a physician, came over here from Cuba right after Batista, before Castro, just as a child, 3 years old. He's the one that has an MD. He's got 8 boards behind his name. Of course, coming over here, not speaking any language, now speaks 3 fluently. His biological mother, we were to find out when he was 25, was a nurse. So I'm saying the gene pool passed these genes through. It's certainly not going to be saints have sinner kids, sinners have...
No, but Raquel, yes, that is true, but we certainly have a matrix that is true. But the matrix can be altered just as anything in a Petri dish can be altered by what's put into that Petri dish. So the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the foods that we eat alter our genetic inheritance and alter it quite dramatically, incidentally. I can prove it over and over again. I mean, you could take an individual, you could change their brain with the various substances. We all know that. Look at what psychoactive compounds will do to the most superior brain. They'll turn him into a liberal on MSNBC. Or if you look at Hollywood, take a look at what drugs do to people. They all weren't crazy when they were born, but look what they become from using drugs. They become experts on science when they never took a science class. This is an example of altering the matrix with substances. So you can do the reverse too. You can put positive substances into the individual's test tube, so to speak, and make them into a better person.
Of course, and we're looking though because the most unproductive are becoming the most reproductive. So we've got all these people.
Wow, that's a nice statement. I like that one. The most unproductive are becoming the most reproductive. Why do we bring them into this country and they go on welfare and they knock out the babies? Why do we want them in this country? What sense does that make? Answer. Thus, they're the only people who will vote for a Democrat like Jerry Brown.
But, Michael, you also know, and I know that you know this, and I'm sure many of your listeners do, but when you're going into, like, the prison system, when you're talking about Muslims going into the prison system, they're already getting somebody that is already flawed. They go in there, and let's just say somebody that is black. They do not teach them the Arabic language that everybody that knows even one word of Arabic knows that the Arabic word is a bead, or plurally a bead, means slave. So they're telling you, you're going to be my slave. They don't understand the language, and they start following a religion that they have no idea what they're following.
A religion, by the way, that enslaved their own ancestors.
And are still doing that, as you know.
Yes, here's the problem, Raquel. You're a highly educated, highly intelligent woman with a high IQ, and you're dealing with a world, unfortunately, that doesn't match your DNA. So I'm going to send you in advance God, Faith, and Reason. It's not out for quite a while yet, and I know you're going to love this book. It's written for people just like you, questioning people, and I thank you for listening to the program. Oh, God, I hung up on her. Jim can't get her address. Tell her to call back immediately. I pressed the wrong button. I just start rolling up paper like Lawrence O'Donnell now. Why am I hearing hammering in my ear? Stop the hammering. Stop the hammering. I'll go right up there and stop the hammering. Why am I hearing hammering in my ear? Captain Queeg calling Phil Griffin. I'm looking for a job on MSNBC. Welcome back. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. And I had a little Victrola that I had a hand crank. I swear to God, it sounds like another century. And I sat in the little tenement apartment, and I'd play Gene Autry till I'm back in the saddle again. And I used to dream about what it would be like to live out in New York, to live out west where the skies were clear and there were cattle and there was a friend who was really a friend, right? And here I am living all these years out west where there are no friends, and there is no friend like a friend. It's the same wherever you go. There are good people and bad people. There are honest people and dishonest people. There are people you can befriend and people you can't befriend. And there are short ribs everywhere. That's all I can say. That's all leads back to the dinner table. If there's going to be short ribs on my plate tonight, maybe. It's a special night in the air. I can feel it again. It's pregnant today. Pregnant, as we say, because the 21st of September, is the last day of summer. What does that mean? Nothing to most people. They're not connected to the cycles. They're not connected to the rhythm of the ages. I am like that primitive man that Zorba the Greek was written about. I'm like a Zorba the Greek of the radio. And a man like me should live 1,000 years. Unfortunately, we don't. And as was written, the way of all flesh, as you say, this is it. So today we've been talking about bizarre topics. Adam's rib. Did you know about the white slave market conducted by Arab Muslims on the Barbary Coast? did you hear about the gays in Europe who are alarmed by Islam and they're moving to the right? You didn't hear any about that if you live in New York or San Francisco because it's kept from you. And you're kept in the plantation of left-wing democratic belief systems. But in Europe, it's changing in ways you can never, ever believe. The fact of the matter is they're waking up to the fact in Europe that it's only the right wing that can save them from the fanatics who they're bringing in. As Merkel brings in more of them, the gay people who have sensitivity to the realities of their time are frightened of what's happening. And they're moving to the right, believe it or not. And as Islam plants its roots ever more deeply in the soil of America and Western Europe, more and more European gays are wising up. They're breaking ranks with those in their midst who, as is written by Tyler O'Neill and PJ Media, the fools and liars in their midst who preach that the gay community and the Ummah are natural allies. They're casting ballots not for their death, but for their survival. They're recognizing that Islamophobia is much different than homophobia. And they're waking up perhaps before it is too late. Unfortunately, in America, that has not happened because of the propaganda that is relentless. This is the Savage Nation. Thanks for listening. I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Back in the 1800s, we were fighting the slave traders in Tripoli, and we were talking today about the white slave trade conducted by Arabs in the 1700s. And here's a little side note to the white slave trade, where over 1 million people were ripped out of their villages in the Mediterranean, as far north, by the way, as Ireland, Iceland even, and sold into slavery by the Arabs. In 1785, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams went to London to negotiate with Tripoli's envoy, Ambassador Sidi Haji Abdarrahman, and they said to him, "What right do you have to take slaves in this way?" This is Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. And the ambassador, the Muslim ambassador, said, "The right to take slaves was, quote, founded on the laws of the Prophet, that it was written in their Quran, that all nations who should not have answered their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise," unquote. Has anything changed? No, nothing has changed in Iraq and Syria amongst ISIS. They think exactly the same way. So when Donald Trump came along and said he will not let any more Muslims into this country until, quote, we can figure this thing out, he was 1,000% right, meaning figure out how to weed out the throwbacks. Well, what happened? What happened was the idiotic, stupid judges in black robes said, "You know what? You don't know what you're talking about. You're a racist. We're going to let them all in." And they blocked them. So this is the struggle that America is going through right now. It's a struggle for the entire West, whether it wants to live or die. As I can see it on this day, I see the West struggling between those who want to live and those who want to die. And unfortunately, right now, those who want to die are running the media. They're running Hollywood. They're running the universities. And they're running a good portion of the government. I am not in that group. I want to live. I choose life. Alarmed by Islam, Europe's gays are moving to the right. You will not hear it in the media because the media is run by the suicidal, as you can see by some of the outtakes of a show host on MSNBC who was seen between takes going insane over sound in his earplug. Unbelievable to me. Astounding. You see how phony they are. All of it that you see is pre-recorded on cable news. Every last image is fake. Every last image is fake news because it's staged news. And you see the real man cracking up, going crazy at his staff, yelling, rolling up paper. You look like Captain Queeg. Calls himself a socialist, no less. Don't you love it? The higher the, well, I can't say it's a family show, but there's a phrase for it in the ancient Yiddish, or the old Yiddish, which is the bigger the klafka, the bigger the, I can't even But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, in other words, the bigger the image that they wear to show how holy they are of their socialism, the bigger the phony. It's that simple. Take Leon DiCaprio, for example, a fine actor. I love his acting. Here's a guy who has the nerve to say we should not have people in office that don't believe in climate change. Do you understand how audacious this is and what crap it is? The man has an entourage, a harem of girls. He has a private jet, a yacht. Maybe he charters them. Always entertaining himself with the women like he's a pasha. Flies around, cruises around, and talks about global warming, and I'm supposed to believe it? Here is an example of the hypocrisy and the suicidal nature of the hypocrisy of an actor named Leon DiCaprio in clip 29.
We should not have people in office that do not believe in facts and truths and modern science that are able to manipulate and risk the entire future of this entire generation. We are at that turning point right now, and we're going to look back at this moment in history, and frankly,
Lenny.
this administration.
Yes, Lenny.
And certain people are going to be vilified for not taking action. They really are.
Lenny, if you actually caught up with the science, Lenny boy, I know you went to the High School of Performing Art in Beverly Hills, and you sort of skipped the academic subjects. You skipped math, you skipped literature, you skipped everything, Lenny. I know you went right into thespianism, but you know there is actually science on this global warming issue, Lenny, and it doesn't support the big lie. We're actually in a global cooling phase, Lenny. You really have to catch up with the modern science that you speak so eloquently of. I am very concerned for the future of the West. I think the West is being destroyed completely, both by liberalism and by radical Islam, which have made a marriage. The marriage had took place over the last number of years. I wrote about it in Government Zero, one of my previous books, where I saw the radical left joining forces with radical Islam to destroy the West, both for different reasons. And eventually they would fight it out for dominance, and I know who would win at that point. The Arabs are much smarter than the leftists are, and at the end of the day, the Arabs would kill all of them and then take over the leftist movement and destroy them and then take over the world. But the progressives are so hateful and, by the way, so deluded in their thinking, they don't even know what they're doing most of the time. They put it under the guise of being good for the environment, minorities, women. That's not at all what they're for. They're for the total conquest of the political structure and replacing it with their vision, which may be that of Marx, Engels, Trotsky, you name it. They don't know what they're doing, and they don't know where it leads. They don't know history, and they're condemned to repeat it, but I'm not going along with them, which is why I detest them. I'm not going to let insane people lead me to my own death, which is what my fight is every day on this radio show, incidentally. And I want to leave it at that for the moment. I don't have to sit here and get angry. It's just what I do for 20-some-odd years. And some people actually believe in what I say, and they buy the books I write. 5 in a row bestsellers. No one can match that. Nobody can match that 5 in a row, the last one, a #1 bestseller on the New York Times list, without a single appearance on any television show. It's pretty remarkable. No book tour. No book tour. That's a big way of stocking your book, by the way, stocking the numbers. I mean, if I did a book tour like Hillary Clinton is doing, which I do not do, you can sell 2,000 books at any bookstore that sets it up right. So you do 5 bookstores, that's 10,000 books right away. I don't do it. She has to do it because she's not loved very much. She's despised by most people. And a lot of them buy their own books. I don't do that. A lot of them have organizations buy their books. I don't do that. And so, the numbers can be altered quite readily. So, in November, my book, God, Faith, and Reason, will be out. We'll see what happens. It could be a big success or a big flop. We don't really know. And I don't know. It's in God's hands. If you want to know whose hands it's in, it's fate, God, whatever you want to say. We happen to be talking about a number of topics, including this topic. This is the white slave market, which was conducted by Arab Muslims along the Barbary Coast. It was only stopped when they were killed. When enough of them were killed, then their enslavement of whites stopped. Does it sound familiar? Now you understand what barrel bombs were invented for? Now you understand what Tomahawk missiles were designed for. Now you understand what guided missile cruisers were designed for. Now you understand what B-2 bombers were designed for. I hope you do, because if you don't, then you are first enslaved in your mind, and you'll be enslaved in your body as well. Unfortunately, there are some on earth who must be stopped only with force. That's the only thing they understand. One of them is a monster in North Korea by the name of Kim Jong-un, loved by Madeleine Albright, John Kerry, the UN, and the other psychopaths who almost destroyed this nation, and the West, by the way. Apparently, there is a man who understands the existential threat that this fat monster poses. His name is Donald Trump. And I hope it doesn't come down to it, but I know it will. I know it will. I think Fatso will launch and will destroy him. We'll talk about a number of problems, not really, subjects, not problems. Now, we all have lawyers. We all use them. There are some good ones. We know that. I've said it before, not so jokingly. But we also know there's a lot of very bad apples. And we also know there's a huge class of lawyers who should be in prison called class action lawyers. It's an invented theory where most of the money goes only to the vermin in the law firm. The people get pennies. They get thousands and millions of dollars, rather, of every settlement. The people get nothing. And they break companies. They destroy good companies. I give you one example after another. But what I'm about to tell you has nothing to do with the company being destroyed by lawyers, class action lawyers. I have a friend, a wonderful friend, a lawyer friend named Larry. I'll leave his last name out of it. I don't know if he even listens. I don't know where he is. Larry is Jewish. Larry's mother is a Holocaust survivor. Larry has spent his entire life trying to stop class action lawyers. He's the best guy I know. He's told me horror stories from inside courtrooms that you'll never see anywhere else. It's like a nightmare what he has seen. He told me that he tried to stop these class action lawyers when they were filing claims against Germany. Now, some of these claims against Germany for stealing art and such property during the Holocaust are certainly valid. But he said most of the settlements were invalid. And he said, you can't believe, Michael, you cannot believe what I heard in those courtrooms between the lawyers suing Germany at the time and the settlements they were working out with the judges, and how they'd laugh at me when I would tell them these claims are false, these claims are excessive, you've got to stop it. He said they would look at me and laugh at me like I was the biggest idiot on the planet. That's an example of class action law at its worst, perhaps. There are many other examples. The fake Holocaust claims. How about the mesothelioma claims you've seen on television for years now? Now, I want to ask you something. How many people can really be suffering? So many people. Can there be that many people suffering from a job they had 50 years ago and blame it on that? Do you know how many people have made hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars? Why do you think they take ads on every television show? You turn on a TV show every day. Did you do this? Did you buy this hip replacement joint? Did you do that? Did you sneeze? Did you put a tissue to your mouth? Did you put talcum powder on your baby? Let's sue Johnson & Johnson. Let's sue the geniuses who made the hip replacement and saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Let's sue everybody in sight because we're lawyers with dirty law degrees. And we have the power because we own the judges in filthy robes. Listen, this society is sick from top to bottom. And there's a lot of things that can be done to straighten it out. It can't all be done at once. At the end of the day, it's not so much the legislators, but the lawyers who are running this country. And they're not doing a very good job of it, are they? And now you know why they hate Trump so much. Because their business has been interrupted on many levels. If you think that the immigrants thing is not about money, you're mistaken. It's all about money. And the lawyers are feasting on the immigrants. The lawyers are feasting on the immigrant feast. Don't think they're doing it because they have such compassion for the so-called dreamers. There are billions of dollars that have been made and are being made off the backs of these so-called dreamers. But let me tell you something else. What about our children? They're not dreamers. They have no dreams. They're not entitled to any dreams of their own. Only someone who broke through the border, they're allowed to have one. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. I think this is an important question, Adam's rib. It's a funny statement. And Biblical Translator chose to translate the Hebrew word selah as rib when referring to the formation of Eve from Adam in Genesis 2:22. And there are biblical scholars who say never is this word translated as the word rib in any other scriptures except in that particular place. Some scholars believe, as I do, that Adam was created both male and female, as denoted in Genesis 1:27, and that God literally removed the female part of Adam from his abdominal chamber, Selah, right? So why didn't translators translate this word as chamber? This is the conundrum. I don't know how it goes. So what does the word really mean? Does it really matter? Does it really matter? I don't know. I mean, things have advanced since the time of Genesis, right? And Arabic, by the way, shows that dilah, rib, is not the same root as zalah, to limp. And it just so happens that in Hebrew, well, I could go on and on. I'm not a biblical scholar at all, or I'm just a person trying to get through it all without hurting anybody, by the way. So we're talking about biblical absolutism, biblical realism, and the world we're living in. And how do you know what to do, what's right and what's wrong? This is the only question really that we all face. What is right and what is wrong? And that becomes something for you to figure out on your own. I'm not here to tell you what it is, but I think we all know what's right and wrong. But some have lost their way and they don't know what's right or wrong. I love being in radio because you don't lead a normal life. But I'm enjoying myself because I'm using my mind, which is really the greatest thing a human being can do. It's the greatest gift we have is our mind. And a mind is a terrible thing to waste, by the way, on trivia. So I'd rather talk about these topics today. And I invited a biblical scholar to call the show if they know what the word rib really means in the Bible, because it makes no sense on that subject of Adam's rib, not to interpret literally. People ask me, what do you do? How do you know what to follow? If you don't follow the Bible to the letter of the law, where does that leave you? You're going to start interpreting the Bible any way you want? And what does that make you? You can do anything you want. Well, unfortunately, that is what has happened. And that's why you have such bizarre things as liberal Jewish temples that do the opposite of the Bible and call themselves religious. They put on the cloak, and they don't follow anything that's in the Bible. So people say, well, what does it mean? Like they have a Jewish star over their head and a pulpit that makes them religious? No. And the same thing is true in every religion. It's the same in Islam. That's why the fundamentalist Muslims follow the letter of the law and they kill people. That's all. So where does it leave people who are modern, educated, tolerant, humane? And that's something for each person to figure out on their own. But it brings me back to Trump in a strange way. I had a little insight running in and out of the kitchen just now. I said, you're talking about biblical absolutists, and you're saying it shouldn't be interpreted that way. You're saying it should be interpreted with common sense. There are Trump absolutists out there who have gone crazy, like Ann Coulter. She's a smart woman. I admire her writings. She's a Trump absolutist. She's gone off her mind over this because he's not an absolutist in what he promised. But I never thought he would give us 100% of what he promised. Never. I wasn't born yesterday. I said by the end of the campaign when he won, I said if we get 10, 20% of what he promised, it'll be 110 or 120% more than we would have gotten if Hillary had won. That's the best we're going to get in this world that we live in. And, this is what you have to remember. 50% of this nation is one way and 50% is the other. Just take raw numbers. The nation is roughly divided 50-50. For a president to govern, no matter who he may be, there must be compromise. There must be. So you cannot be a Trump absolutist because you're going to be miserable. You're going to alienate yourself from yourself.